The Christmas tree glowed like a beacon in my mother's Seattle living room, its golden lights casting a warm haze over the chaos about to unfold. I stood frozen, my breath caught in my throat, as my brother Ethan's words sliced through the festive air like a blade. "We've had a family vote, Emily," he said, his voice cold and rehearsed, his smirk barely hidden. "You're no longer part of this family." My sister Chloe nodded from the couch, her manicured fingers clutching a mimosa, while my mother, Laura, dabbed at her eyes with a tissue, her performance Oscar-worthy. Greg, her spineless husband, stared at his coffee mug, avoiding my gaze. The room spun, the ornaments blurring into streaks of red and silver. But I wasn't shocked, not really. I'd been waiting for this moment, dreading it, preparing for it. My hand tightened around the strap of my leather satchel, where the crimson dossier waited like a loaded gun. 10 years. That's how long I'd been their ATM, their lifeline, their fool. At 32, I was a senior portfolio manager at a San Francisco hedge fund, pulling in $200,000, 0 cents a year, but my bank account told a different story. One of sacrifice, betrayal, and a family that saw me as nothing more than a checkbook. I'd given them $387,500, 0 cents over a decade, every dollar meticulously documented in that dossier, every promise of repayment a lie. But this Christmas morning, as the snow fell softly outside, I wasn't here to plead or cry. I was here to end it. I reached into my bag, pulled out the glossy red folder and placed it beneath the tree, its color stark against the green needles. "Open it," I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Ethan's smirk faltered. Chloe's glass trembled. Laura's tissue froze mid-dab. They didn't move, but I saw it in their eyes. Fear. And that's when I knew I had them. It wasn't always like this. Growing up in a tidy suburban Seattle home, life felt like a Norman Rockwell painting. Summer barbecues, bike rides, my dad grilling burgers in the backyard. I was 15 when it all fell apart. Dad announced he was leaving, his suitcase already packed, his new girlfriend waiting in a convertible outside. The divorce was a bloodbath, leaving Mom with a teacher's salary and 3 kids to raise. Ethan, 5 years younger, turned sullen and aimless. Chloe, 3 years my junior, leaned into her charm, always the center of attention. Mom became someone else, bitter, calculating, her warmth replaced by a steely need to survive. "We're family, Emily," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "We stick together." Those words became my chains. I threw myself into school, desperate to outrun the pain. My grades were my armor, my ambition my shield. I earned a full ride to Stanford, while Chloe chased an art degree at a pricey private college, and Ethan bounced between dead-end jobs, dreaming of tech stardom. At 22, I landed a job at a top hedge fund, my $120,000 0 cents salary a golden ticket. I thought it would change my life. Instead, it changed theirs. The first request came 3 weeks later. Mom called, her voice tight. "Chloe's car died, honey. $3,000 0 cents to fix it. We're stretched thin with her tuition." I wired the money that night, my heart swelling with pride at being the one who could help. Chloe sent a text. Sis, the best." Then silence. 2 months later, Ethan needed $5,000 0 cents for a surefire startup. Mom needed $2,000 0 cents for medical bill. Greg's hours were cut. The pattern crept in so slowly I didn't see it for what it was. Exploitation. By 25, I was their bank. I paid their mortgage when they fell behind. $30,000, 0 cents gone from my savings for a house I'd never buy. I funded Chloe's art school, $30,000, 0 cents more, and Ethan's startup, another $25,000, 0 cents, which he spent on a leather jacket and a trip to Vegas. I started the Crimson Dossier then, A simple red folder where I logged every transaction, every promise, every lie. It was my secret, my tether to reality as their demands grew. Family dinners turned into ambushes, their smiles masking calculations. "You're doing so well, Emily," Mom would say, her eyes gleaming. "We're so proud." But pride wasn't what they wanted. It was money. Danger found me early. One night, delivering $5,000, 0 cents cash to Ethan for his business emergency, I pulled into a dark parking lot. A man in a hoodie approached, his hand in his pocket, eyes glinting. "Hand over the bag," he growled. My pulse hammered as I floored the gas, tires screeching, the cash still in my passenger seat. Ethan never mentioned the incident, but I saw the guilt in his eyes when I handed him the money. Another time, a loan shark showed up at my apartment, his knuckles tattooed, his voice low and menacing. Ethan had defaulted on a $10,000 0 cents loan I'd unknowingly co-signed. "Pay up, or your brother's in trouble," he said, leaning too close. I paid $15,000, 0 cents to make him disappear, my hands shaking as I wired the funds. I added both incidents to the dossier, my anger growing with every entry. At 28, I was promoted to senior portfolio manager, my salary doubling to $200,000, 0 cents. I kept it quiet, but they knew. How, I'll never know, but the requests surged. Ethan wanted $50,000, 0 cents for another game-changer startup. Chloe needed $15,000, 0 cents for gallery fees. Mom hinted at a $20,000, 0 cents home repair. I started saying no, testing the waters. And that's when the danger escalated. My car's brakes failed on a rainy highway, the pedal sinking uselessly as I swerved to avoid a truck. The mechanic called it sabotage, a clean cut in the line. I confronted Ethan, but he denied it, his eyes darting. Then came the fire. I woke to smoke filling my apartment, flames licking the walls. I crawled to the window, gasping, and escaped down the fire escape, my heart pounding. The fire marshal said it was arson, but no proof tied it to my family. Still, I knew. I'd refused Mom's $20,000 0 cents request the day before. The dossier grew thicker. The final blow came in October, at a holiday party at Mom's house. I arrived early, arms full of wine and desserts, the dutiful daughter. Voices drifted from the patio. Ethan, Chloe, Mom, and Greg, their laughter sharp. "Emily's such a pathetic cash cow," Chloe said, her voice dripping with scorn. One sob story and she opens her wallet. Ethan chuckled. "Her bonus is coming. I say we push for that Tahoe cabin." Mom's voice cut in, calm and cold. "She's lonely. No friends, no man. We're all she has. You'll keep paying." Greg raised his glass. "To Emily, the gift that keeps giving." Their laughter echoed as I stood in the kitchen, my hands trembling, the wine bottle nearly slipping from my grip. I left without a word, texting Mom about a sudden migraine. That night I couldn't sleep. Their words replayed, each one a dagger. By morning, I'd made my decision. This wasn't family, this was theft. I called in sick and spent the day researching financial abuse. The stories I found were eerily familiar. Guilt trips, lies, escalation. I booked appointments with Dr. Rachel Bennett, a therapist specializing in family trauma, and Mark Reynolds, a lawyer who handled financial recovery. Dr. Bennett's office was a haven, her voice gentle but firm. "This is abuse, Emily," she said. "Family doesn't justify it." Mark was blunter, flipping through my dossier. "You've been their personal bank for a decade. We can recover some of this, especially with your documentation." He suggested a private investigator, and I agreed. The PI's report was worse than I'd imagined. Mom had a gambling addiction, losing $150,000 0 cents in Vegas casinos, my emergency loans fueling her slot machines. Ethan's $40,000 0 cents startup bought a Porsche hidden at a friend's place. Chloe's medical bills covered a Beverly Hills cosmetic surgery retreat and a condo down payment. Every lie was laid bare, and I added it all to the dossier. But the danger didn't stop. Anonymous letters started arriving, typed in block letters. "Keep the money flowing, or you'll regret it." I installed a security system. My nerves frayed. Then my office was vandalized. "Greedy sister" scrawled across my desk in red paint. Chloe's doing, I suspected, after I'd refused her latest $10,000 0 cents request. The worst was the hacker. One morning, my bank account showed a $100,000 0 cents withdrawal attempt, stopped only because I'd frozen my accounts. The PI traced it to a hacker Chloe had hired to erase her financial tracks. I confronted her, but she laughed it off, her eyes cold. "You're paranoid, Emily." I wasn't. I was awake. Christmas approached, and I planned my move. I'd confront them all at once when they couldn't dodge or deflect. Mom's calls grew desperate, hinting at holiday expenses. Ethan pitched a new venture needing $30,000 0 cents. Chloe complained about hosting costs. I played along, agreeing to bring wine and dessert, but I was done funding their lies. I bought thoughtful gifts: leather journals for Ethan, a sapphire necklace for Chloe, a spa package for Mom and Greg. My final gesture of love before the truth. I wrote letters, one for each, outlining my pain and my terms, and I prepared the dossier, its pages heavy with evidence, bank statements, texts, emails, PI photos, and a digital recorder holding their October betrayal. Christmas Eve, I barely slept. The weight of what I was about to do pressed on me, but beneath it was a spark of resolve. 10 years was enough. I dressed in a deep green sweater and black slacks, festive but fierce, and loaded my car with gifts, wine, and the dossier. As I drove to Mom's, snow dusting the streets, I felt like a soldier heading to battle. The house was a winter wonderland, lights twinkling, a massive tree dominating the living room, all paid for with my money. Mom greeted me with a hug, her perfume cloying. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart." Ethan took the wine, his smile forced. Chloe air-kissed my cheek, her eyes scanning my outfit with disdain. Greg nodded from his armchair, already nursing a whiskey. The tension was palpable, their chatter forced, their glances calculated. We sat for breakfast, Mom's famous cinnamon rolls, bacon, mimosas. But the conversation stayed shallow. No one asked about my life, my work. They were waiting, I realized, for the gift exchange, their chance to strike. Mom orchestrated it like a play. "Chloe, give Emily your gift," she said, her tone odd. Chloe handed me a tacky mug. "World's okayest sister, coffee stains inside." Ethan gave a $20 0 cents gas station gift card. Mom and Greg offered a scarf I recognized from Mom's closet. My gifts to them, thoughtful, expensive, were met with awkward thanks, their discomfort clear. Then Ethan cleared his throat. "We need to talk, Emily," he said, his voice hard. "We've decided you're not family anymore. You're too controlling with your money, holding it over us." The room went silent. My heart raced, but I was ready. I reached for my satchel, pulled out the crimson dossier, and set it under the tree. "Open it," I said, my voice cutting through their shock. No one moved. "What is this?" Mom asked, her facade cracking. 10 years of receipts," I replied. $387,500 0 cents worth of lies. Ethan's face paled. Chloe's glass slipped, spilling mimosa. Greg stared, confused. I opened the folder, pulling out the first page, a spreadsheet of every transaction. "Shall we start with you, Ethan? $40,000, 0 cents, for a startup that never existed. But the Porsche you bought, that's real." I tossed photos of the car onto the table. Chloe gasped. "Or you, Chloe? $15,000, 0 cents for medical bills? Nice condo in L.A. Mom's hands shook. "The gambling, Mom. $150,000 0 cents lost in Vegas. My money." Their denials came fast, furious, but I held up the recorder. "October 12th, I said, pressing play. Their voices filled the room. Pathetic cash cow, Tahoe cabin. She'll keep paying. The laughter, preserved, echoed. Ethan stood, his chair scraping. This is insane. Chloe lunged for the dossier, but I pulled it back. I have copies, I said, and a lawyer. I slid legal documents across the table. Repay me. Commit to therapy or I sue for fraud. Mom's tears were real now, her mask gone. Emily, please. But I was done. I stood, bag in hand, 6 months, no contact, decide. As I walked to the door, their voices rose, anger, pleas, excuses. But I didn't look back. The snow crunched under my boots, the dossier's weight gone from my shoulders. I was free. But what would they do next? The snow was heavier now, clinging to my windshield as I drove away from Mom's house. The crimson dossier on the passenger seat like a ticking bomb I'd just disarmed. My hands gripped the steering wheel, knuckles pale, but my chest felt lighter than it had in years. 10 years of lies. $387,500, 0 cents of them. Exposed in one devastating Christmas morning. Ethan's voice echoed in my head, his final words as I'd walked out. This isn't over, Emily. You'll regret this. His plea had turned to a threat in seconds, his eyes wild with something I didn't recognize. Desperation, maybe, or something darker. I shook it off, focusing on the road, the Seattle skyline fading in my rearview mirror. I was free, or so I thought. The first anonymous letter arrived 3 days later, slipped under my apartment door in San Francisco. The envelope was plain, the words inside typed in stark black ink. Keep the money flowing, or you'll pay in ways you can't imagine. My stomach lurched, the words blurring as I read them again. I scanned the hallway, heart pounding, but it was empty. The hum of the city outside my only company. I locked the door, double-checked the deadbolt, and added the letter to the crimson dossier, my hands shaking. Who sent it? Ethan, with his quick temper? Chloe, her cruelty always cloaked in charm? Or Mom, her gambling debts piling higher than I'd realized? I didn't know, but the fear it sparked was real, a cold weight in my chest. I called Mark Reynolds, my lawyer, the next morning. His office smelled of leather and coffee, a stark contrast to the chaos of my life. This is intimidation, he said, reading the letter, his brow furrowed. We'll file a report, but without evidence, it's hard to pin down. Keep documenting everything. He slid the dossier across his desk, its pages now thicker with the PI's report and my own notes. The gambling's the key, he added. Your mother lost $150,000, 0 cents in Vegas, and that's just what we know. Casinos don't play nice when debts go unpaid. I nodded, my mind racing. Mom's addiction wasn't just a personal failing. It was a black hole swallowing my money and maybe drawing in dangerous players. What about Ethan and Chloe? I asked. Mark's eyes narrowed. Ethan's Porsche is registered under a shell company. Chloe's condo has a second mortgage she can't explain. They're hiding something, Emily. Be careful. Careful wasn't enough. The second letter came a week later, this time in my office mailbox at the hedge fund. You think you're untouchable. We know where you sleep. My breath caught, my cubicle walls closing in. I glanced around, half expecting Ethan's smirk or Chloe's cold stare, but my colleagues were buried in spreadsheets, oblivious. I reported it to security, who promised to check the cameras, but I knew it was futile. That night I installed a Ring camera at my apartment, its red light a small comfort against the growing dread. Sleep became a stranger, my dreams filled with faceless figures and the sound of breaking glass. Work was my refuge, the numbers and markets a language I could control, but even there the cracks showed. My office was vandalized 2 weeks after Christmas, the words, "Greedy Sister," scrawled across my desk in red paint. My files strewn like confetti. My boss, Karen, was sympathetic but firm. Take a few days, Emily. Sort this out. We can't have drama here. I nodded, humiliated. the dossier tucked under my arm as I left. The PI traced the paint to a brand Chloe used for her art, but it wasn't enough for charges. "She's smart," the PI said, his voice grim. "They all are. Watch your back." I did, but it wasn't enough. My car's tires were slashed the next day, the cuts clean and deliberate. I stood in the parking garage, rain dripping down my neck, and wondered how far they'd go. The family event in February was a mistake, but I went anyway, hoping to gauge their intentions. It was Aunt Susan's 60th birthday, a lavish affair at a waterfront restaurant. I arrived late, my nerves raw, the dossier's weight in my mind. Ethan was at the bar, his charm dialed up for the cousins. Chloe held court with her Instagram-perfect smile, her new highlights catching the light. Mom and Greg sat quietly, but her eyes darted to me, wary. I kept my distance, sipping a soda, until Ethan's voice boomed across the room. "Here's Emily, our resident Scrooge," he called, his grin sharp, "hoarding her millions while we scrape by." The room laughed, but it wasn't friendly. Cousins whispered, aunts frowned, and I felt the weight of their judgment. "That's not true," I said, my voice shaking, but Ethan cut me off. "Come on, sis. You've got no family, no life. What's the point of all that cash?" The room spun, my face burning. I left without a word, their laughter chasing me to the car. The dossier had a new entry that night: public humiliation. Dr. Rachel Bennett, my therapist, became my anchor. Her office was a sanctuary, its soft blues and warm lamp a shield against the storm. "You're breaking a toxic cycle," she said, her voice steady. "That makes you a threat to their system. The letters, the vandalism, it's their attempt to pull you back in." I nodded, clutching a tissue, the dossier open on my lap. "What if they never stop?" I asked, my voice small. Rachel leaned forward. "You're stronger than their tactics, Emily. The dossier is your truth. Use it." I did, but the truth was a double-edged sword. The PI's next report was a gut punch. Mom's gambling debts weren't just to casinos. She owed $50,000, 0 cents, to a loan shark named Vince, a man with a rap sheet and a reputation for violence. Ethan's Porsche was tied to a shady dealership linked to Vince's crew. Chloe's condo? A front for laundering money, her art a cover. My family wasn't just greedy. They were in deep with dangerous people. March brought a new kind of terror. I was jogging in Golden Gate Park, the fog thick, when a black SUV slowed beside me. The window rolled down, revealing a man with a scar across his cheek. "Vince says hi," he said, his voice low. "Keep your mouth shut, or that pretty face won't be so pretty." He drove off, leaving me gasping, my legs trembling. I called Mark, who urged me to file a restraining order, but I hesitated. A piece of paper wouldn't stop Vince. Instead, I hired a bodyguard, a former Marine named Jake, whose presence was a quiet reassurance. Jake reviewed the dossier, his jaw tight. "This isn't just family drama," he said. "You're in a war." He was right, but I wasn't ready for how dirty it would get. April was a turning point. Chloe called, her voice saccharine, asking to meet for coffee. "Let's fix this, Em," she said. "Family's family, right?" Against Jake's advice I went, the dossier in my bag, a recorder in my pocket. We met at a trendy Mission District cafe, her smile as fake as her tan. "I'm sorry about Christmas," she said, stirring her latte. "We got carried away. Let's start over." I nodded, wary, waiting for the cat. It came fast. "I need $20,000, 0 cents, she said, her eyes wide, "just to tide me over. You know how tough the art world is." I leaned back, my recorder running. "What about the condo, Chloe? Or the surgery in Beverly Hills?" Her smile froze, her nails tapping the table. "You've been spying on me," she hissed. "You're sick." She stood, knocking over her cup, and stormed out. That night, another letter arrived. "You were warned." I added the recording to the dossier, my resolve hardening. May brought a new blow. My bank account was hit again. A $200,000 0 cents transfer attempt stopped only by my fraud alerts. The PI traced it to a hacker linked to Ethan's old tech buddies. But Ethan denied it, his voice frantic over the phone. "I'm trying to go straight, Em," he said. "I don't know who's doing this." I didn't believe him, but his fear sounded real. The dossier grew, its pages a map of betrayal. Jake suggested I move, and I did, renting a secure loft in Soma, its high windows and keycard entry a fortress. But even there the letters followed, each one bolder. "You can't hide forever." I stopped jogging, stopped eating, my reflection in the mirror a stranger. Hollow-eyed, haunted. June was the breaking point. I was leaving work when a man grabbed me in the parking garage, his grip bruising my arm. "Vince is done waiting," he growled, his breath hot on my face. Jake appeared, his gun drawn, and the man fled, but not before dropping a photo of me, jogging in the park, a red X over my face. I collapsed against my car, sobbing, the dossier clutched to my chest. "We need to end this," Jake said, his voice grim. I nodded, knowing he was right. Mark filed for a temporary injunction against my family, freezing their assets pending a fraud investigation. The PI dug deeper, uncovering texts between Ethan and Vince, Chloe's bank records showing payments to the hacker, and Mom's casino logs tying her to Vince's crew. The dossier was no longer just evidence, it was a weapon. July 4th loomed, the deadline I'd set for their decision. I planned a neutral meeting at a downtown Seattle restaurant. No lawyers, no therapists, just us. The days leading up were a blur of preparation. I wrote new letters, sharper, demanding full accountability. Jake reviewed security, insisting on a public venue. Rachel helped me rehearse my boundaries, her voice a lifeline. "You're not responsible for their choices," she said. "Only yours." I nodded, but the fear lingered. What if they fought back? What if Vince was there? The dossier sat on my desk, its red cover a reminder of the truth I'd fought for. The restaurant was sleek, its floor-to-ceiling windows reflecting the Puget Sound. I arrived early, Jake at a nearby table, his eyes scanning the room. Mom entered first, her face gaunt, her designer purse gone. Greg followed, his shoulders slumped. Ethan was next, his usual swagger muted, his eyes red-rimmed. Chloe came last, her defiance palpable, her heels clicking like gunfire. We sat, the dossier between us, its presence a silent accusation. "You wanted us here," Ethan said, his voice low, "so talk." I took a breath, my hands steady. "You've seen the letters," I said. "The terms haven't changed. Repayment, therapy, accountability, or I file the lawsuits. And I'm adding Vince to the equation. I know about him, and so will the police." Mom's gasp was audible. "Emily, I didn't know how deep it went," she said, her voice breaking. "The gambling. It started small. After your dad left, I thought I could win it back." She sobbed, but I didn't soften. "You owed Vince $50,000 0 cents, I said. My money, you let him threaten me." Greg's face paled. "Karen, what is she talking about?" he asked, his voice shaking. Mom buried her face in her hands. Ethan shifted, his jaw tight. "I didn't know about Vince," he said, but his eyes darted away. Chloe scoffed. "This is ridiculous. You can't prove anything." I opened the dossier, pulling out the PI's latest report. Ethan's texts with Vince, Chloe's payments to a hacker, Mom's casino logs. It's all here. I slid photos across the table. Ethan's Porsche, Chloe's condo, Mom at a slot machine. The room went silent. Chloe lunged for the dossier, her nails grazing my hand. "You're destroying us!" she screamed. Jake stood, but Greg grabbed her arm, his face furious. "Enough, Chloe," he roared. I didn't know about any of this. Ethan stood, his chair scraping. "Em, I'm trying to change," he said, his voice cracking. "I got a job, a real one, at a tech firm." "I'm paying you back, I swear." I looked at him, searching for the brother I'd once loved. "Prove it," I said. "Not with words. Actions." Mom looked up, her eyes raw. "I'm in rehab," she said. 6 weeks clean. I sold the car, the timeshare. I'm teaching again. I'm trying, Emily. I nodded, but my heart stayed guarded. Chloe sat back, her arms crossed, her silence deafening. I closed the dossier, its pages a testament to my survival. "You have 1 month to sign the agreements," I said. "Therapy is non-negotiable, and if Vince comes near me again, I go to the FBI. I stood, my voice firm. "This isn't about money, it's about respect. You've got 1 chance to earn it back." I walked out, Jake behind me, the Seattle rain cool on my face. Ethan's voice followed, desperate. "And wait." But I didn't stop. The dossier had done its work, but the war wasn't over. 6 months later, my loft was a haven, its walls lined with books and photos of new friends. My chosen family. I'd joined a hiking group, met a guy named Ryan, a chef with a laugh that warmed me. Work was steady, my reputation intact despite the drama. Mom was sober, her repayments small but consistent, her letters showing a humility I hadn't seen before. Ethan's job stuck, his first payment arriving with a note. "I'm sorry, Em. I'm trying." Chloe was the holdout, her therapy sessions perfunctory, her anger a wall. But I was done chasing her approval. One night, I opened the Crimson dossier, now a scrapbook of my healing. Journal entries, affirmations, a photo of me laughing on a hike. The letters had stopped, Vince's crew gone quiet after Mark's legal threats. I ran my fingers over the red cover, its weight no longer a burden. The truth had cost me my family, but it had given me something better. I didn't know what the next Christmas would bring, whether we'd heal or drift further apart. But I knew I'd face it on my terms, the dossier a reminder that I'd fought for my worth and won. As I closed it, my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. "Can we talk? Just us." I hesitated, then typed, "Maybe." The future was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like hope.